seem like a nice guy, but there's some evil stuff that you got there in your back pocket.
I can definitely get nasty if I'm honest. The hammer fists are great, they do damage, you can knock people out, blah, blah. With the elbows, if I'm not going to knock you out, I'm probably going to cut you open.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm looking to do. I want to do some serious damage, and if the ref doesn't step in, you're going to look like a butcher's block. So you pick your poison.
That's the line right there. Now, I don't know whether you've got the same headphones as me. It's just that you're such a big human being that they look like they're little
tiny.
kiddies ones.
They are. They're my little boys.
Fair enough. I'm so pleased we got to do this. Thank you so much for making this happen. I know that you're at the airport now, ready to go. It's like you're one of your fights before the fight, trying to get this over the line.
No, I know. Tell me about it. It's been a struggle to try and arrange this interview with you. To be fair, it's been harder to do this than it is to probably get to Abu Dhabi.
Well, I'm pleased that you've got yourself a little dust up, because you've had to travel a few miles for this one. But for those that aren't aware, just fill us in on the path to your UFC debut, if you will.
Well, yeah, it was a debut that was meant to be and didn't happen. I travelled to Australia to fight Justin Tapper, UFC Perth, which was 3 weeks ago, I think. 3 weeks ago, maybe.
Yeah.
Went there. Fight week, went there a little bit early as well. I think I was there altogether 14 days. So I was away for a little bit to acclimatise. And then about to weigh in, and I get a phone call saying they need to speak to me urgently. Came downstairs, ready to weigh in. I'm thinking, he's missed weight before. Maybe he's a little bit over, but that's cool. We'll take that. A few extra pounds in the pocket. Why not? And then, he had to go to hospital because he got ill cutting the last 8 pounds, supposedly. So that's what happened a few weeks ago. And then I told everybody, I think I said to Sean Shelby when he was there and the rest of the UFC team, just make sure that you keep my name in the hat. I'm ready to go whenever you guys need me. And they called me to actually fight in Rio on 48 hours notice. And I was on a night shift. I was in a tunnel, so I missed a few calls. And when I got home in the morning, I know it's sod's law. I spoke to my manager, and he was like, "Look, it's 24 hours now. You're probably not going to make it." And I said, "Look, that's fine, no problem. My name is in the list. I'm happy about that." And then I said, "How about I fight him in 2 weeks?" Because Valter Walker, because his opponent pulled out fight week or weigh-in day. I was actually ready to fly to Rio and fight him, to be fair.
Were you really?
Notice. Yeah, I would have done it. But yeah, that's what I'm here to do. I'm here to fight. So
nice.
Look, obviously, in terms of practicality, is it practical? No. Are the odds in my favour? No. Flying to Rio, jet lag, home crowd, ranked opponent. He's on a 3-fight win streak at the minute, all heel hooks. Yeah, I'm up for it. I don't really care. I'm here to fight, and that's what I told UFC when they signed me, that if you pull me, I'll come, I'll pick up the phone, and if I can make it, I will.
Nice.
Yeah.
But here we are. So it didn't quite happen, and I think that's more of it. It would have been, I know you would have taken it, but it sounds like we didn't know it then, but the chips are a little bit more evenly spread for this one. I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, spoke to my team. My team were like, "Look, we don't hate the fight. It's someone we've had our eye on. We're actually keen for you to fight him." 48 hours notice, probably not ideal. 2 weeks notice, a little bit better. We still like the matchup. And it was actually my coach who I called, who was in Rio, cornering Mario Pinto. I called him. Yeah. So Mario Pinto is my teammate. So I called my coach, Stuart Austin. I was like, "Look, what do you think?" And he was like, "Tell him you fight in 2 weeks. And if they're happy to do it, we'll do it." So I did. Here we are. So, yeah.
Great. And then the fun began. Now, I've got to, I mean, you may have felt it a little bit differently, but certainly when I was like with Cage Warriors, then came to the UFC, I very much realized that there were MMA fans and then there were UFC fans. So I'm not sure if that's what you felt a little bit in coming over, and now you're introduced to a new audience who are seeing you and getting to know you through the socials, and you are a funny guy. And it looks like you and Valter, who is very willing to engage on the socials, have been doing some creative stuff over the last week or so.
Well, look, to be fair, I've actually seen before I even signed to the UFC, I see Valter's stuff online, and you know, I keep an eye on some of the heavyweights, you know, as you do.
Right.
Um, and I've seen some of his stuff, which I think is quite funny to be fair. And then, yeah, when I knew I was fighting him, I knew that potentially the games would start. So obviously he's quite big into social media, and I thought, you know what, I've got to give him some back. I can't just roll over and take it and
Nah.
shy away from it because that's not my nature. So I thought, why not? We'd have a go, and you know, it's quite light-hearted at the moment. Hopefully it stays that way, but it's all fun. And you are right. There are UFC fans and MMA fans, and I am slowly being introduced to the UFC fans that are sort of hardcore. And not only that, he's got a big following from Brazil. All I keep seeing in my comments now is Brazilian flags, and you know, I'm giving it back to them as well. You know, so it's, you know, it's all tongue in cheek, and I really enjoy that stuff because that is my personality. I am. I
Yeah.
won't say a practical joker, but I like to, you know, have a laugh and not get under people's skin, but just, test the boundaries a little bit.
Yeah, yeah, that's
Yeah,
what it's sort of
yeah,
about. I think
yeah,
we sound like we're from fairly similar parts of the world. Like I've essentially brought up in North London, and that's certainly how I grew up. If you got into the pub and you didn't offer something within 5 or 10 minutes, then the boys would let you know.
yeah. That's exactly that. So that's exactly the same for me, to be fair. And it's that banter. I guess it's that British banter as well. I mean, not everyone gets it, but I'm glad that there are some back and forth, and there is an opponent that I've got that can also give and take, because it does take two to tango. If it was just me posting stuff and there's no engagement, then it sort of it dies out. So I'm glad that he's pushing back as well, and I'm pushing back, and it makes it more fun.
Yeah, yeah, I like it. Fun for everyone, and it adds to the build up. Adds to the build up. So Louis, where have you come from? Like we've just touched on the London part, but I feel like we see heavyweights generally in the UFC. Francis Ngannou, I think, was 3 years, and then he's in a title fight from starting the sport. I know that you've got a bit of a sporting background, but over to you to give us an idea of where your sporting roots lie, and perhaps geographically to give some perspective on that too.
Okay, so I was born and bred in London, North London, Tottenham.
It was going so well, Louis.
Was it?
To be fair, I
So,
should be the one not trying to upset you, but yeah, I'll have to say I am a
are
gooner.
you coming? Are you coming to Abu Dhabi?
I will be there. I will
I'll
be
see you
there.
there then. I'll see you
I'll make
there.
sure I wear my red and white just for you.
So yeah, I grew up in Tottenham, North London, to a Glaswegian father. Came to London in the '60s. Back and forth to Scotland. Really, really patriotic. You know, bled Scotland, loved Scotland, lived and breathed it. Just a pity, I think the work wasn't there, so he had to come to London and mingle with the English. And my mother's from England, and it was yeah. So I grew up in North London, and I played all sports. I was pretty good at most sports. Football. I started playing football from a very early age. Then I transitioned to rugby, um, and then at about 11, 12, my dad took me to a boxing gym, a Haringey Boxing Club. And it was there where it was football, rugby, boxing. Those three sports I really pushed at. And then eventually my dad was like, look, you've probably got the potential, or, some potential to make a career out of one of these sports. You're going to have to pick one and just go for it. And I really, really enjoyed the boxing, but I felt like I was enjoying rugby more at that point. So I decided to pursue rugby. I represented Scotland at youth level. But as long as my rugby career lasted, I was still in and out of the boxing gym as well.
Okay.
I'll do 6 months in the gym, maybe I'll take 6 months off, or I'll do 8 months boxing as well as the rugby, and then I'll take a few months off and then back to it again. So it was always, in the back of my mind, and I felt like I had talent as well when it came to the boxing. And then skip forward, I think I was 21 when I stopped playing rugby. Decided to pack it in. 23, had my first child, and then decided to pick up the boxing gloves again. So decided to go to a boxing club, and I thought, you know what, MMA is pretty big at the moment. How about we go and try some kickboxing? Now I'm not ready for the wrestling yet. That can wait a while. So I started doing recreational stuff. The kickboxing on a Tuesday and Thursday.
Look, sorry to interrupt, mate. Were
Yeah.
you competitive in the boxing at this point
No,
when you were
no,
starting to?
that's the thing.
Okay,
It
okay,
was, I never done any of the ABAs. They kept asking me, but I
right,
think the way it worked with England boxing, don't quote me on this, but from what I heard is if you do another sport like rugby, and I was fairly, I was at academy level and I went on to play professional, but England boxing wouldn't give me a boxing, my amateur boxing license unless I was
right.
just solely doing boxing.
Yeah, they get really
Something like
funny
that.
about
Yeah,
that, don't they?
they do
Yeah,
other
yeah,
sports like crossovers. You can't sort of play football on the weekend at a good level and then also have your, do the ABAs. They're a bit funny. So,
yeah.
like I said, I chose boxing.
Right.
I chose rugby and then transitioned to boxing after my boy was born. But after that, it was just more, I'd say recreational because I'm really competitive. I love to compete. So as soon as I stepped in the boxing gym again at 23, I went, have I got enough time to turn pro? Maybe. Let's try and give it a go. Then I found an MMA gym in North London, and that's where Brad Pickett was training and fighting out of Titan.
Oh yeah, yeah. Very, very well established gym. Yeah, with Mickey
Ash,
Pappas.
Mickey, there was Ash Grimshaw, uh, Brad Pickett, got Nathaniel Wood, Dominic Woodin, all those guys down there. So I went there, like I said, doing bits and bobs because I had a kid as well, so it was hard to sort of and a job at the time. And I think after sort of sparring some of the pros, some of the heavyweights, Luke Traynor, Stuart Austin, those guys who were well-established pros at the time, I was like, I'm handling myself pretty well. Boys, I'm thinking of turning pro. And they were like, yeah, just go for it.
Straight pro. No,
Well,
no real
I had
amateur.
I had one amateur MMA fight, and it
Okay.
lasted a round, I think. So it lasted a round, and then I went off to it was during COVID, really. So there was
Okay.
actually no fights available. And then I got a call saying, "Do you want to fight this guy in Barnsley, of all places?" Um, on my pro debut, he was 6-0 as a pro, as an amateur at the time. Pavel Filipko, the brave heavyweight
Right.
champ.
Okay.
So he was my pro debut, and I didn't know much about him. He obviously didn't know nothing about me. I think Vegas thought they were bringing me up from London to maybe get a hiding. And then I put him out in the first round, and then that was my pro career started. So here we are. And I always think I've been in this game a really long time. It feels like I've been in it a long time, but I've actually only been competing professionally now for 4 years.
Right.
So here we are, UFC after 4 years, no amateur career. Yeah, here I am.
It's a hell of a rise. But
I guess
I
so.
feel
Yeah.
I feel like you're also in what I've seen of you in the cage and also in interviews, you have a certain confidence, you have a certain personality type as well that I feel like you're pretty grounded, is what I'm getting at.
I am. Yeah, I am. I can
It
have
seems like
obviously,
that.
yeah, I can have the banter, and I am very competitive, and I am confident. I do have competitive confidence, no arrogance at all, and I am very down to earth. I've been in professional sports a long time, whether it's rugby, now professional fighting. So I understand there's always peaks and troughs, and it could always be your last dance, or it could last another 10 years. I don't know that, so I just take the rough with the smooth, and I enjoy it. And, yeah, here I am 4 years later.
I- I've been asking around about you. I spoke with Brad. I spoke
Oh, did
with
you really? Yeah.
yeah, I spoke with an old friend of mine, Sonny, as well, Sonny DeCalia.
Oh,
So
right. Yeah. I love Sonny. Sonny's a great
yeah,
guy.
I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, he's such a great cheerleader,
So
isn't
is
he?
Brad.
Those
So is Brad as
guys.
well. To be fair,
Of
Brad's a
course,
funny
of
one.
course.
Yeah.
And but I think everyone's echoed your athleticism. You do not move like a man of your size, if you will. A bit. I mean, it's a bit of an obvious comparison. You're on the same card as him, but like Tom Aspinall. A lot of people
Yeah.
said on his way up, he moves like a middleweight, and I think there are elements of that in what we see from your game. But how would you, for fans who haven't seen you fight, how would you describe your style?
I would say explosive, fast. Um, I'd like to think myself as technical, but when you look at me, when the way I fight, it doesn't look technical, I guess. But yeah, I would say explosive, fast. I say my fight IQ is pretty good, and always willing to put on the line. That's kind of my fighting style. Always willing to put it on the line, fast and explosive. I guess that's just what comes to mind straight away.
Why do you think you've been able to do so well in such a short space of time? For those that don't know, you've already picked up a heavyweight title in Europe at LFL Levels Fight League, which is where, yeah, where Mario Pinto, who again we're just really being introduced to, and you know, one of your teammates. So obviously a legit title. We're seeing how Mario's doing right now. But back to the question, why have you been able to get so much success so quickly, do you think?
Um, I like to think it's because I'm really good. But I think the honest answer is, I think as heavyweights, um, for one, I think the heavyweight division across the world, not just the UFC, is fairly thin. It's quite a thin division. You always think these big guys, they're willing to fight and they fight anyone, but that's not the truth. I think, you know, it's a lot of trying to protect records and things like that. So I think for one, it's fairly thin to find good technical heavyweights. And I think second of all is, yeah, like you said, my athleticism, and I just think my willingness to learn really, and I learn quite fast. I think as a heavyweight, I guess we don't need to be super technical as well, you know, like a featherweight or a bantamweight maybe. You know, don't quote me on that. I feel like I have the power, I have the athleticism, and I have the speed, which is also a massive advantage against 90% of the heavyweights I've
Yeah.
seen and I've come across. If you have those attributes, like for example, Mario Pinto has, Tom Aspinall, Cyril Garner, all these guys, speed, the athleticism, the dedication, I guess, can go quite far, quite quickly in the heavyweight division. Because, you know, if you're fighting on regional shows, guys that are not as athletic, not as fast, you're going to have that advantage. And if you know, you'll pack the power. So if you're putting those three elements together, it's a recipe for success, I think.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. Now, what is you've already voiced how it is. It was difficult on the come up to get matchups, and that is something I've heard from a lot of guys in the UK heavyweight scene. I'm pleased to say it seems like we've turned a bit of a corner, and we're seeing groups like collections of people getting together, like you guys in London. Then Tom's been getting his group of big guys up north as well. And I think the scene in Europe has developed, particularly for the heavyweights. Historically, KSW has always been a really good hunting ground for big human beings. Um, but I'm only really coming round to Levels Fight League in the last few years with Tom Breeze, with Mario coming through as well. So why was it that you chose those guys rather than a Cage Warriors? I know it's a bit of an obvious question, but that's where a lot of people see that route to UFC.
Yeah. So just to answer your question with Cage Warriors, I did actually reach out to them before I signed with NFL. And the fact with them is they don't have a heavyweight division anymore. Since Tom
Right.
Aspinall, there is no heavyweight division.
Gotcha.
So that kind of, you know,
Well, that's that
answers the
answered.
question. Yeah, that's the answer. In regards to LFL, the reason why I signed with them is because when I spoke to them, my main concern was activity. And when I was with the previous organizations, I had like 3 fights a year, then it went to two, then it was one. And it was like, you know, I can't go on like this. Got family, got kids, you know, 1 fight a year as a professional. It doesn't work. So when I spoke to LFL, they were like, look, as long as you're healthy, we can get you on all the cards we've got throughout the year. And we should and we will be able to find you opponents, which they, you know, and I saw what they done with Mario, and they said, look, this is the blueprint. We're going to follow the exact same blueprint, and we'll get you to the UFC. But you've obviously got to put in the work and win, and we'll give you, you know, the right, let's say the right matchups, but we'll give you opponents that are going to pose you problems. You're the one that's going to have to win, and then we'll do the rest on the back end, and we'll get you to where you need to be. So once I had the conversation with them like that, that's when I say the switch flipped on for me, and I was like, all right, these are the guys to go with. Because when I did leave the other organisations, there were talks with the likes of Octagon, KSW, and these types of promotions. And I think it would have been maybe just another number. I would have been just another European heavyweight. You know, it would have. They couldn't guarantee me the activity. Whereas LFL were like, look, we're putting on 6 shows this year, and the competition is going to be decent. So, are you up for it? And I was like, yeah. And that's why I went with them, to be fair. And they've done everything they've said, you know, on the tin, as well as my management, fair play. Fair Play MMA, fairly new to the scene as well. So they've done everything behind the scenes, and I've had to deliver, which I've done. And then, it's a recipe for success, I think. And here we are.
Love it. Yeah, I really like hearing positive stories like that because I've been around long enough now where all I'm hearing is like horror stories of people being benched and it's just not working. And especially for a man like you who's got a family to feed as well,
Yeah.
maybe short on the years.
Yeah. So as well, we probably had the same conversations with similar people on the scene. It's always, all it is oh yeah, how are you getting on there? How are they treating you? What's the activity like? And it's like, well, I've only been out twice this year and I haven't heard anything in 4 months. Just like, that for me would be a no-no. I can't do it, because I knew that I say time isn't on my side. I think for a heavyweight, I'm still fairly young,
Yeah,
but I
yeah.
know that, it, it is a time sensitive thing. If I can't get the activity over the next 24 months, then that window might close because of the UFC's, graphic might change. They might want to look for 25-year-olds. They might look for
Yeah.
unbeaten 28-year-olds, and I don't fit that mold. So, I had to sort of make sure I'll smash it out now. And then, yeah.
You did that. So I always like finding out about how the call came. Like put us back in that on that day. Like where were you? Who were you with? How was it presented? And then obviously, what was your reaction when that UFC call came through?
Okay, so the actual initial call I got, it was crazy, to be fair. I was actually working the night shift, doing on the railway. So it was about 2 a.m. in the morning, and I kept on at my manager. This was after my title win. When are the UFC coming for me? What's going on? I need an update. Blah blah blah. It's like, look, you can't rush this stuff. There's a process, and I'm like, I don't care about processes. I just I want to be in. And I got a message from Mick Maynard at 2:30 in the morning, just about to go and start a shift. And he's like, "We've got an opponent for you, Paris, Mario Pinto." And I was like, honestly, my words were like, Mario Pinto, of all the names across the whole world, it's my teammate. And it's not as if we've been training together for a couple of months, and we've been training partners, what, 5 years maybe,
Oh no.
And my initial gut feeling was, look, you've got to say no. You've got to say no. So I said, look, unfortunately, Mick, it's the only name in the whole world that at this moment in time, I don't want to fight him as my debut. We're teammates. Any other names? And he's like, no other names at the moment. Sorry. And I was like, then I was trying to ring my coaches who were probably fast asleep in bed, going, do I change my answer? What do I do? Can I go back on it now? And I was like, look, what's done is done. I think it's the best decision. And if the UFC want me, they'll come, they'll come again. It might be 6 months down the line, but you just got to keep winning. And I was like, look, I've blown the chance now. I've said no to like the top brasses at the UFC. And there's people out there that would bite their hand off. I'm like, shit. Anyway, fast forward a couple of weeks. I'm talking maybe 3 weeks. I'm walking my dog in the park and get a call from my manager. He's like, have you seen the news? And I was like, nah. I messaged you. You're in. I was like, in what? He went, UFC. And I was like, really? And Contender Series had just started. And I was like, oh, someone pulled out. And he's like, no. You're fighting in Perth, Justin Taffer. And I was like, yeah. So I went home, got my dog home, and I was like, I'm going training. I think I went out to the kickboxing gym and I was like, yeah, I'm in. And we just, done some rounds, just some excited rounds. And that was the moment when I thought, all right, this is it now. They've come calling again. And I didn't care who the name was. Could have been top 5. Could have been anybody, But me being me, I was just like, no matter who it is, it's a yes. And yeah, happy to meet up Justin Taffer. And unfortunately, it didn't work out that way. But we've got to fight now, and that's the main thing.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Oh, amazing. Oh, that is sod's law, isn't it? To get the Mario in your debut.
honestly, I couldn't believe it. I was just like, then I was trying to call for advice. Is that the right decision? Have I said the right thing? Second guessing my actual initial gut feeling. But then in the end, I was like, you know what? Because I spoke to Mario and I was like, Mario, I don't want to fight you. Mario said, I don't want to fight you either. I was like, well, that's settled then. You know, it isn't going to happen. You know, if it was like the bell or number one contender, maybe we'll have to have that conversation. But at the moment, we're so far away from that. You know, it's the only name that I was like, you know. So,
Yeah.
but here we are. You know, I'm glad I did say no, and
Yeah.
you still got the opportunity.
It's all worked out in the end. It's all worked out in the end.
Certainly has, yeah.
So Valter Walker, I see that you've been over to SBG. Sounds like you've been to a couple of different spots, by the way, and I think that's really healthy. I know that you trained with a lot of good guys, but part of the fun that you've had online is you'd clearly done some work with John Kavanagh or with Johnny Walker.
Yeah,
a little photo together. Just let us peek behind the curtain about what that was all about.
So I was only, I think, a year as a pro. I think I was 2-0 as a pro, and we had a group chat going with John Kavanagh, Luke Trainer, Simeon Powell, me, a few others, because obviously we're big lads in Europe. They've got
I've
Johnny
seen
Walker.
Simeon over there actually, thinking about it.
Yeah. So we've got, you know, we had big lads, got Johnny Walker in Ireland, and I think the connection was Luke was at Bellator and Kavanagh. It was the one that organised the tournament that he won to get the contract or something. So there was a bit of a connection there. And then always messaging, any of you guys want to come over for rounds? I think Johnny had a big fight coming up, and he was like, look, 3 or 4 of you guys come over, put you in digs, train every day, and we'll get some rounds in, get some work in. And I think 3 or 4 of us were like, yeah. So it was me, Simeon, Mario Pinto, and it was an amateur called Bertie. So yeah, we went over there, stayed in the digs, and we were training with Johnny. Put us up, like amazing. There was no bad word to say about Johnny. His hospitality was top notch, and he obviously gained from us as well. The big lads coming over, giving him some hard rounds, and yeah, that's how that come about. And I learned a lot from Johnny, if I'm honest. If I'm going to be totally honest, especially not not so much about fighting, but learn giving us an insight into his personality and who actually Johnny Walker is. Not Johnny Walker the performer, Johnny Walker the person, and understand why he does what he does and when he does it and things like that. And it gives you a different perspective on that. But yeah, I was over there a good couple of years ago. I was meant to go back, but things got in the way. I think I was like in the middle of a camp and I wanted to stay with my coaches. And then Simeon's been over there a couple of times since and done some work with Johnny. And yeah, that's how that came about. And I remembered, I was like, oh, right, I think I've got a picture somewhere of me and Johnny. Let me post it up and let Johnny know I'm going to take care of his little brother when I fight him next week. And yeah, and it hit the mark. To be fair, it's done pretty well on social media, and it even got a response out of Johnny Walker as well. So
yeah, he's a wild man, is Johnny. I'm almost disappointed when you said it's more about Johnny, not the performer, because I'm thinking with your tones, when you grab a microphone and you get those lyrics going as well and get the crowd behind you, all you need is a dance to go with it, Louie, and Johnny can bring that to you.
To be fair, Johnny's a much better dancer than me. Actually, I might release the footage of us dancing.
There you go.
At the end of sparring one day. That might come another time when I start a YouTube channel or something.
I like it.
But he did. I think it was a Friday. We finished hard training and we was like, let's have a dance, and we was all just dancing. And Johnny done the famous worm and all that, so it was quite funny to be fair. It was good.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Yeah,
oh, I love all of that
stuff. Yeah.
Well, serious things, and don't overshare on this one. But of course, you mentioned it earlier. Like Valter Walker has clearly got this speciality where he'll even force you up against the fences, dropping down, kind of falling back and taking people's like knees with them. So a shortened camp. I mean, how do you approach a guy like that?
As best as you can, really, with the time you've got. I wouldn't say it's ideal, but I don't live in an ideal world. I'm not an idealistic person. I think I thrive better on, that build up to Perth, for example, was like 6-7 weeks, a lot of time to think. You can overthink a little bit. Right. With this, it's like, okay, he's got his speciality, the heel hooks. He's dropping from crazy places. He's dropping from the fence and he's dropping from half guard, and these are wild. but also it's worked for him thus far. Also, it puts him also in a bad spot. So he hasn't obviously got the confidence to fall back on these, which is great. But then I look at the competition he has fought. Not saying that competition's rubbish, but I just think that as heavyweights, they don't expect. I mean, heavyweights aren't known for their jiu-jitsu anyway. Never mind heel hooks or footlocks. So I think that's the last thing on their mind when they're training jiu-jitsu or, it's heel hooks. And most of the heavyweights are oblivious to that stuff. So I think he's found a niche. And if I'm totally honest, I mean, without divulging sort of too much, I think I'm able to deal with that type of stuff.
Right.
And, there's always elements with submissions. It's like saying, I know how to deal with a guillotine, or I know how to deal with a rear naked. Obviously, there's setups and there's, different points in the fight where you might zig instead of zag and you get caught. That's fair enough. I'm not saying that can't happen. What I am saying is I'm very aware of that type of jiu-jitsu. I've trained at 10th Planet a lot. And I've trained with Stuart Austin for a very long time.
Yeah, he's been known to get some heel hooks, hasn't he? Professional MMA.
Yes, exactly. So, and Ashley Grimshaw, another good black belt who is also very good at heel hooks and footlocks. So, I'm not saying I'm an expert, but I can deal with. Yes, I have. It's not like I haven't seen it before, and I think the position. So, what I've actually looked at myself is what type of heel hooks he's getting.
Right.
What positions are they landing? Is it 50-50? Is it, X guard? Is it this and that? So I'm fairly okay with that kind of stuff. And I'm not saying he's not going to go for it. He probably will go for it. It's worked. It's like me not throwing a right hand.
Right.
It's worked thus far. So I'm expecting him to go for the hill and transition to different spots. I just have to make sure that I'm on point and I'm aware of these things. And if he does end up not finishing me in that position, then it could be a very longer night for him because he's going to put himself in a bad position with 124 kilos on top of him, once I rehydrate.
Yeah, you like those 12 to 6 elbows, don't you? I don't think I've ever seen you throw like a hammer fist. They've all been the real nasty stuff, Louie. Seem like a nice guy, but there's some evil stuff that you got there in your back pocket.
I can definitely get nasty if I'm honest. No, I just think, look, at the end of the day, the 12 to 6, once they brought that in, I was like, thank you, because it's a tool where, okay, if it's not doing, how can I put it? The hammer fists are great, they do damage, you can knock people out, blah, blah. With the elbows, if I'm not going to knock you out, I'm probably going to cut you open.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm looking to do. I'm looking to do some damage. I ain't looking to pitter-patter and hope the ref might step in. I want to do some serious damage, and if the ref doesn't step in, you're going to look like a butcher's block, and that's kind of what I want. So, you pick your poison.
That's the line right there. Before I let you go, mate, what is important for us to understand about you as a person?
I'm just a normal bloke. Actually, I'll take that back. I don't think I'm very normal. I think I've had a burning desire in my belly since I was really young to do something great. And that's the honest, without being too humble and too modest. I was going to say I'm a normal guy. I've always had something in my stomach and burning desire to prove the world or prove to myself that I can be great. And that's actually who I am.
Thank you for making this happen. I know that you're about to jump on the plane. Yeah. I'm looking forward to shaking your hand and getting to know you a bit better as you embark on this UFC journey, mate.
Thank you so much for your time, and keep that Arsenal shirt at home. Don't bring it to Abu Dhabi.